keeping the cultura roots amongst the American hegemony of today. Our people have had to mimic and copy as a tactic to survive. Our lineage has always been hard to see for American eyes, but easy to find. We are here to deliver hope, resources, and the message. Bridging the gap from our bloodlines to today. Yo soy Joaquin.
Buenas tardes. Aquí estamos de nuevo, mi raza. I want to give a shout out to everybody over here. Fernando, Romero, Dr. Quintana, my boy Rob over here. Today we have another series of Meet Your Host. And pues, ¿a quién nos toca ahora, Dr. Quintana?
The original Cultura Roots gentleman, Señor Rob Macias. I'm very honored to have this opportunity to tell your story. And, we're going to start you off, and I want you to, let us know all the beautiful things that you've done in your life. I had an opportunity to speak to you also privately. We've had a lot of good conversations. Yeah. And as you know, Yo Soy Joaquin is an important, topic of what we do and how we are como Mexicanos, Latinos here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And I know that you come from Los Angeles, and I would like to maybe start off a little bit and just let us give us a little brief history or a long history of where you're from, what brought you to Las Vegas, a little bit about your family, your padre, your madre, some of those cool stories you told me about, you growing up there, and also you being out here as a businessman. You are an entrepreneur. I know you're involved in the industry in regards to, film and production. So we'll get into that as well. But give us a little history of what was it like for you growing up, as a kid, and what were you thinking about, and your trials and tribulations, because there's a lot of kids out there, as you know. That's something we talk about all the time, about the children, the young teenagers out there who are talented, but sometimes we grow up in an environment where it gets a little complicated for us, and we get ourselves in a little trouble, or it's hard to reach to the right people, the right mentors. Just give us a brief synopsis of your life.
Yeah, definitely. That was a great introduction. Thank you so much. What's up, everybody out there that's tuning in? Thank you very much for joining Union Raza tonight. Very happy to be here with these gentlemen. But first and foremost, I have to give praise to the Creator, to my God. Thank you so much. And also to answer your questions, I was born in '87 in Whittier Hospital, the OG Whittier Hospital. Nice. Born in, raised in Whittier, La Puente, West Covina, Valinda, Roland Heights, Hacienda Heights, and I think a couple of more cities. So obviously a lot of moving around growing up, and that was due to a chaotic household growing up. My family lineage, what I found out after years and years, is on my dad's side, we come from Aguascalientes, right? And then my dad and his whole family is from inner LA and from Compton. So that type of influence in my household primarily grew up with my father. And shout out to everybody in the union, because my father was CWA his whole life. He worked for GTE, then Verizon after it switched over. Love you, Pops. My brother worked for Teamsters when he worked for UPS. My father was United Auto Workers Union. And my brother-in-law, he is the IBEW. So shout out to all the union brothers. I hear you very much. I should have been a mechanic, but I'm doing this. It's all right. And so, And growing up in LA, man, with my pops, and my mom's from El Paso. Much love to El Paso, Fernando. She grew up in the 5 Points or something like that, the 5 Corners or something. So shout out to all my family in El Paso.
Le llamaban el quinto infierno, le llamaban.
Yeah.
It's a tough neighborhood.
Yeah. My mom is a tough, special woman too. I love you, Mom. That's the type of people that raised me. And growing up in certain neighborhoods in LA in the early 90s, it wasn't really a joke. Coming out of the 80s and the 90s, I remember, growing up in La Puente, there was drive-bys. So I'd be sleeping and then waking up and there's bullets holes right above my head, you know, crazy. There'd be gangsters on the block walking around, you know, hitting people up and robbing people. You know, other than that, things were crazy. Then Pops got custody of us after the parents broke up. Then started playing football. Got a lot of anger and aggression out that way, you know, just hitting people. I was like Ray Lewis, didn't care, you know, just crazy on the field as much as I could play. I got hurt too. I remember Ronnie Rodriguez knocked me out, or what was it, Oscar, something like that. But
Ronnie or Oscar.
Boom, just head to head like a ram, and I cracked my vertebrae in my back. You being a doctor chiropractor.
That's how it started.
So if you guys see me walking with a limp, that's why. All right. Then football turned into boxing, got into boxing after high school, like coming out of high school, then up into my early 20s. But, you know, not like you guys, I didn't like compete. I would go and spar and fight at the gym. So, you know, there's
those
that.
are gym wars, though, man. Those sometimes are tougher than fights.
Yeah, man, because you get a lot of dudes that like have their daily aggression they want to take out. And I'm just trying to get sharp from my mind and my skills. And I'm just like, hey, you know, 1 second you're like, hey, okay. And then they ring the bell. And you're like, whoa, dude. But and then boxing turned into Muay Thai. And then Muay Thai, I've been, you know, practicing since like 22. But to get back to growing up in LA, when I was a teenager, sorry about that, excuse me. When I was a teenager, football was over with. And so I needed a way to get all this fire that I had inside of me, because the stuff that I saw growing up and the effect it had on my mind as a young person, I didn't really know how to channel it at the time. So it got me into a lot of trouble. And, you know, you just need to hit something sometimes. Yeah. So that's how I got into the boxing and the fighting. But when I was 19, I went through some stuff and a couple of really life-changing moments. One was a near fatal car accident. And I got hit by a drunk driver doing like 70 miles per hour. He passed out behind the wheel and he hit me in my front left wheel. And it was like a couple of seconds. If he would have hit me in my door, I wouldn't be here, because the car, like, when he hit me, it went about 30 feet this way. Engine dropped out of the car. I remember being conscious the whole time, the whole car cracking around me, airbags going off.
You by yourself? Or?
Yeah, I was by myself. I was going to go see somebody, and it was like 2 a.m. And yeah. So, you know, I'll share this with you guys. You know, this is really a moment that bolstered my faith very, very much, because at that point, I really didn't care about much. But I vividly remember being by myself in this T intersection. And when I was right here, making a left, because at a T intersection, you can only make a left or a right, and there's nobody around. It's like 2 a.m. on Valley Boulevard right there in Turnbull Canyon. People from the neighborhood know. And this green light turned, and I remember looking at the light, and I was just like, why am I stuck here looking at this? This is odd. Okay, I'm going to go now. And that 1-2 seconds of me pausing is what saved my life.
Absolutely.
So I say that because at the end of the night, you know, I'm in the hospital and all that. And I remember my pops coming up to me and he's like, mijo, you okay? And I told him the story, and he looked at me and he said, mijo, God saved you for something. Just figure it out. All right. Like, all right, fair enough. And then not long after that, I heard a commercial on the radio. It said, would you like to be in radio broadcasting? And I had a deep voice, always had a deep voice, you know, puberty and stuff like that. But right, little baby walking around with his voice.
Yeah. I hit puberty. I don't have his voice.
No, but seriously though, I was funny. I was looking at baby pictures with my mom yesterday, and she's like, I remember your head was so big, you used to run at the tilt because your head was so big and heavy, you couldn't carry it. And real talk, I was the only person on a high school football team that had an XL helmet. It was horrible. Mira. So heard the commercial for the radio broadcasting school. I ended up going to the Academy of Radio and Broadcasting in Huntington Beach, met some really cool people there. That got me into a radio station in LA, Power 106, working with Vinny Pagan, Justin Davidson, Raging Asian, Gene Wong. Shout out to all of them for teaching me everything about commercial production, teaching me everything about voiceover. I was doing commercials with them for a long time, getting my voice out on the radio waves in LA. So if this voice sounds familiar, that's why. Then that turned into like a passion and a drive that I never had before, because as you guys just heard, you know, what I was exposed to, a union family and growing up around all that shit, sorry for the language, but I was expected to be one way in life. Like I was supposed to have this route, and then something happened and there was a fork in the road. Then I started getting into broadcasting. I got introduced to microphones and mixers and studios and stuff. And I said, I really like this. So the trade school was about 9 months, and I did that. I did it well. You know, I was like the first person there, the last person to leave. I gave it my all, always doing demo tapes, always having instructors check it out. I just like, it caught me. It really, really drew me in. And then from there, you know, the radio station heard it, and they heard like a lot of talent, a lot of raw talent. So I think that's what carried me. And once I got exposed to that, I mean, this is early 2000s. So, you know, this is way before, this is like MySpace days still coming out. So having the access to celebrities that we have now, or influencers, was not the same as it was back then. You could only see them at a radio station. You could only see them at a TV station. So imagine me being that kid, being at a radio station, and I'm meeting these rappers and I'm meeting these celebrities. And I'm like, yo, this is wild. Like, you were on my TV, you're on my radio, now you're in front of me, I'm shaking your hand. So after that, my mind was just like, what else can I grab? What else can I get? And even though relationships faltered and some bridges got burnt, you know, rightfully so, I still didn't give up. I started getting into acting. So early 20s, started getting into acting, being in front of the camera, doing independent movies, doing a couple of cable TV shows, had a commercial acting agent, went for a bunch of auditions. But as soon as they found out I wasn't fluent in Spanish, then they were like, oh, get out of here. Yeah, but like Pepsi, State Farm, like all kinds of them. And then they were like, okay, let's ad-lib in Spanish. Give me some of that. And I'm like, yep, that's me. So did that for a little bit. And from there, it turned into being a host. Oh yeah, hanging out in radio. I mean, I knew tons of DJs. So every single weekend I was going to a club. I was the hype man. I was the MC, and that cool treatment. And events came shortly after that. I started working with a nonprofit called Raw Natural Born Artists, where I was a featured artist. And then with my group, I was a featured artist. So the Fresh West, shout out to Germ, shout out to Mark, shout out to Josh, my boys, everybody from Battleholics crew, all my B-boy fam. Then from there, I started doing the MC thing, especially with like fine art, being like a docent at galleries. Like I said, like, now listen to that part and listen to what I first told you. So how did I go from that to that, right? It's just because I got caught with like this passion and this drive. What else can I discover? What else can I get into? But during this whole time, I kid you not, I was that kid at the Denny's on Valley and La Puente reading the Wall Street Journal at like 2 a.m. because I couldn't sleep and my mind wouldn't stop being active. You know, like imagine seeing that. Like you seeing me all tatted up, you know, I think I was even pelon back then. And I'm reading the freaking Financial Times from the UK and I'm reading the Wall Street Journal. Like, what the hell's going on? And in the meantime, I hear my voice on the TV because I did something for a famous DJ back in the day. And then I heard my voice on the TV. So I'm like getting exposed to all this crazy stuff, man. And, you know, before long, I found out that stereotypes and things are not what they seem. And there's a reason that Hollywood is all theatrical, because at that point, I think Obama maybe just became president. What was his first term? Like 2008 or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when he first became president. And, you know, up until that point, I studied advertising. I studied broadcasting, marketing. There wasn't a lot of cultural influence, even in commercials. You know, you had to dial it back. You had to look a certain way. You know what I'm talking about. And so when Obama got elected, it's like the gate busted wide open. But at that point, being brown and all tatted, we were still held at the back. You know, we were here first, like Johnny Murillo says, but why are we treated last? So I found out what that was like firsthand, radio or with film or with TV. And I said, damn, I keep hitting a wall. Like I can't get past this. So how can I spread my wings? Then my grandpa got sick. I went with my mom to live in El Paso for a summer. We were watching over him. And I remember my uncle, my fly ass uncle in his clean suits. And I was like, Uncle, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I work in hotels, mijo. And he started telling me about that. And he says, the way you talk and the way you are with people, you'd be really good in hotels. So before you know it, first job as a bellman in the DoubleTree in East LA. And then from there, you know, it just kind of went up and up. And I came out here to Vegas. So before I moved out here to Vegas, right? This is fast forwarding now. I skipped a little bit, but before I get back. So when I came out here to Vegas, I went to Miami, and I went to Chicago in the span of like a week and a half going on interviews, because I knew I just wanted to get out of LA for all the reasons that I said. And it ended up, I got interviewed here and I got hired here like 30 minutes later. So Thanksgiving night, 2014, I had all the family with me, and I said, since you all are here, I'm gonna tell you right now, I got hired in Vegas and I'm leaving tonight. So, you know,
Yeah.
And by then they already knew I was on my own path. Yeah. So Pops, he was like, okay, mijo.
You know, just listen to you right now. I feel like I was at a little boxing match. I could see how you were bobbing and weaving, a lot of redirection. It just seems like a lot of redirection, but adapting quickly. Yeah. You know, and I could see where that moment and that evening when you did have that accident, it does happen like that sometimes. Mm-hmm. And no, now you're here, and you know, now that you're doing your business now, and you know, tell us about that. How now, you know, all that stuff, all that knowledge that you have, you know, and a lot of people probably need to ask you more questions than me, because you do have this tremendous amount of knowledge, you know, when it comes to, you know, the whole industry. And then, you know, with the Chicano Hollywood, Johnny Murillo, then you know, how we met was because of that. I was the mixer, you know, basically. You know, I was messing around looking at LinkedIn, and then I saw that on Johnny, and I ended up contacting him. Yeah. You know, and this is how random things happen. I ended up contacting him one night, and I told him, hey, man, I reached out to these guys, this gentleman, you know, from Chicano Hollywood. We should check it out. Yeah. Because he was having an event there in Hollywood.
So you brought Serafine? Yes. Dope. We met. Shout out to Serafine Calvo. Yes. Hope you're having a good time with your son.
And I knew your son.
Exactly. And congratulations, my friend. Yeah. And you know, that was like you know, I knew Serafin at that time. You know, he was just, you know, very impactful on me as well in the conversations we were having. Yeah. And now that, you know, you're in this next step in, you know, in your business and what you're doing, you know, share that with us, and how, you know, with Fernando the other day, you guys went to, you know, speak about, you know, the whole the new law you're trying to, you know, focus on, and speak about that as well, and let us know, you know, what you're doing now in your business, you know.
Sure, absolutely. So what I was talking about right now was about 10, 15 years ago. So fast forward to today. I have Wildcard Studio LLC. I got 2 DBAs underneath that. Wildcard Studio Marketing Agency, Rob Anthony Productions, that focuses obviously on marketing, and then event productions, and Wildcard Studio is all video production. So that's what I'm doing. What have I accomplished with that? Being out here in Las Vegas, I've been a part of some really cool programs. The Super Bowl Business Connect program, when we had the Super Bowl out here. I was a part of the F1 production directory last year, National Minority Supplier Diversity Council, Minority Business Enterprise 2024. I'm a part of Chicano Hollywood. Shout out to everybody involved with that. Been involved with a workshop, I apologize, with them in Boyle Heights as a producer. Now, getting to the bill that you were just referencing, the AB 238, that's the Nevada Infrastructure Studio.
Before you get to the bill, let me interrupt you.
Sure.
So you started, decía mi abuelo, no hay mal que por bien no venga. How do you translate that? Yeah. Because that accident you had got you into this industry now, almost 25 years, and you're telling me you've been directing, producing, acting, artist. I heard you even flow. You sent me a couple of your songs. Yeah. You know, you did some collabs with some amazing people, DJs, celebrities. And you're at a very young age. I mean, 25
I'm 37,
years ago to 37. Yeah. That's been a hell of a freaking roller coaster, brother. I mean, and que estás entero. A lot of people can't, you know, because of what comes with that industry, what the youth you had. You've done a lot, bro. Like como dice Dr. Quintana, you were swinging too, man.
At the same time.
At the same time. Has it been fast? How has that journey been to today? It's been a little bit of every. How can you name it? How does it feel like it to have that journey?
That's a great perspective that you're bringing up, because the way I see it is like I've lived multiple lives in this lifetime. Like the person I was 10 years ago, the person I was when I was married, the person I was even in my last relationship, the person I was when I was doing radio, the person I was when I was doing films, person I was in high school. It was just a different person. So each phase, each part of my life, I've grown, I feel, because I put these lessons on me. There's a lesson to be learned every single time. And I try not to make the same mistakes. You know, I try to find the systems and what works. So, man, it has been a lot. Sure, there's been a lot of bobbing and weaving, but this is just the stuff that I'm divulging right now, which you guys will never know. And the secrets and the things that I have locked in my steel trap is, you know, that's what really, where I got me real close to God. When there's nobody left at the end of the day, there's just you and God. That's it. That's who knows the real truth. And that dawned on me a while ago, because when you have nothing and nobody, you're just left with your thoughts. And so I took that time to really rebuild myself. And I feel like once I open my perception to other people's perspectives, that's what really started to get me going further, because then I know how to talk to people. So with your organization, I understand what you're doing and I understand your mission. With your business, I understand what you're about in the culture. With your organization, I understand your viewpoint. I understand what you've been trying to do. And being able to put myself, you know, even just a little bit into your guys' seat and having that perspective, I think is what has allowed me to be at this table with you. And those are those lessons that I've learned in this lifetime through each of those lives.
Well, a lot of it has to do with being objective, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
As a doctor, you know, when you hear a patient, you don't know them, you got to get to know them in a very quick manner.
Yeah.
And you got to get to the right question. So being objective, and I think life experience and what you're saying is it speeds up the process because you're able to ask the right questions. And once you ask the right questions, because what I was thinking right now when you're telling us this is how can all this knowledge at this table and the people and what we're doing for Yo Soy Joaquin podcast and the other things that we've been working on in the community is how can we, you know, apply it to the public, to the kids, to the youth, to La Raza, to basically maybe exponentially grow in a quicker way without all these other little stuff that, you know, that goes and happens in your life. And, you know, for you, your life experience is such a, you know, just from, you know, the conversations we've had before, it is going to be something beautiful for the people, you know, and all that stuff that you just said right now is basically has converged in your life now that, you know, I get a better perspective from what you're saying, for what the perspective that you're coming from is that, you know what, sometimes in life, and I remember too, like I had a box in my community too, you know, I had to throw some blows before I got to school, or I wanted to go to wind shows, or the kid pops out of nowhere, you know, in the 80s and 90s, as you know, it was difficult.
Yeah.
We didn't have technology as much, you know, like they do today. They had, you know, the beepers and all that stuff. But, you know, what really is important is going back to what we always talk about, like with Fernando and his upbringing and how they treated him back then. Yeah. You know, and now you growing up in LA, and sometimes the environments, sometimes just like right now, they're going to pull funds from certain things, right? Yeah. Certain programs. Now the environment's going to get basically rough because there's nothing there for these kids. Mm-hmm. So that's why we always, what we talk about, we always converse to why are we here, and what we're doing is, you know, making sure that people understand, like, you know, we all come from different communities, but we got to respect what people have done in the 60s and the 70s. Absolutely. With the Chicano movement, as you know, you're big on that as well, and you educated yourself too. And that's something that people don't know either, is that you're aware of that process. Mm-hmm. And also you love to rap, you know, and that's cool too, because in your mind sometimes you got stuff, and you get poetry is very powerful. Just like
I actually started off with spoken word. I was like the only brown person in these spoken word huge gatherings, like in Hollywood, because it would be another culture. But I would never be afraid. And when I would get up there, you know, in this voice, I mean, come on. Yeah. You know,
everybody attention.
Yeah. I literally get people be like, watch this.
Check this out.
You know, and it's just, what I found out is I was blessed with a way that I have my voice. You know, thank God, praise God for that. And what I'm trying to do now is use it in order to get to the youth. Like when we did the talks with Metro, for instance, out here, right? That was the first time that I really stepped in front of the youth as a grown man. You know, I used to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club and things like that. But as a grown man now, having lived all these different lives, in my words, I'm saying, and getting in front of these guys and trying to translate that, I figured out a way to bring my message to the forefront, to be able to tell them that I am you, you are me. You know, it's okay. And the fact that we've all trailblazed in our own way, and we're standing on the shoulders of great men, and being able to relay that. Absolutely, yeah. Shout out to our women. And being able to relay that to the youth while they're so distracted by everything, you know. For us, even ads and TV was enough. Now it's like they can't get away from the distraction. So you have to be a little bit entertaining. You have to be a little bit captivating in order to draw people in, you know, because they have to be entertained in order for you to get the message across. And that's what I really found out with the youth. But the key thing is, I've already been talking to a lot of people this year, and they're trying to reach the same community that we naturally connect to. But this is one thing that I told them. You guys talk at them, we talk with them. If you didn't grow up like that, you've never been in handcuffs, you've never been in the back of a freaking police car, you know, you never had a night where you went hungry, you know, you never had a time when your parents were arrested. Like, the list can go on and on and on, you know. And it's just like, if you've never experienced that, as kids, like your survival tactics and your street sense of knowledge, like that's what's first tuned, is because your survival instinct. And so if you can't relate to somebody on that level, then you've disconnected. So when I bring up everything that I've been through in a short way, and then I tell them, hey, this is what I've been through, and now this is what we're doing for you, because like Serafin says, you grow up to be the man that you wish you had when you were younger. And that's all I'm really doing right now.
100%, man. And also, you know, where you're, you know, watching you grow, even from the time that I met you, just where you're at right now, you know, and we're always growing, and it's always important to be around people that make you better, you know. And I'm always attention to that, like how we grow when we meet somebody, like instantly. It could be a short term, intermediate, or long term. Yeah. You know, and right now in Las Vegas, as you know, we're a growing city. I've always looked at, like, we're not just 99-cent tacos. You know, we're more complicated than that.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think we're going through stuff that I think our community, and I'm dealing with on a daily basis, where people come in and they're stressed out. You know, they're worried, or you know, they're coming in with only one parent. You know, before they came with two parents. Yeah. You know, and now as a doctor, I'm concerned, because when I first moved in the location where I'm at. Yeah. And then, you know, and when we met at the office, when you came to the office too, we met there Johnny was there. Yeah, Johnny, and we had that conversation. Yeah. You know, it's always been about our community, our raza, and how we can, you know, expand it and also make it aware to everybody. Like, you know, we're 35% of the population. Yeah. As you know, as the whole United States, right? Oh. So what about just the Southwest of the United States, the part that was actually Mexico? Yeah. Like, people don't realize when this became the U.S., it's not like people packed up their bags and went south or something. Yeah. Like, the people stayed here. You know, when they took those census polls 10, 20 years ago, people didn't answer their doors for a reason. You know, we are here in numbers that people cannot fathom. Like, we are the power. We are the raza that's united. And I think once we are able to tap in and expose the beautifulness of that, because everything that boils down to our culture, and this is something I learned at East LA College. Shout out to ELAC. I took all Chicano studies there, right? And it really opened my mind with the books, the Popol Vuh, all this kind of really, really cool stuff, fascinating stuff, is that our sense of culture and our sense of love that we have, not only for the earth and for each other, it supersedes a lot of things that we have to deal with right now, which is business or the ordinary day-to-day grind or the capitalism. You know, we always make sure that you're good first, you're good first, you're good first before we get anything else done. Like you always say, right? You have somebody that comes over to your house, you give them your bed, you give them something to eat. That's how you're raised. You know, that's just who we are as a people. And since we let those type of conditioning overtake the things that we should be focusing on first, is where we get taken advantage of, which is a shame, because why would you take advantage of good people? But at the same time, we have to be able to say, all right, is this really their fault or mine?
We gotta learn how to say no sometimes too.
Absolutely.
It's like, absolutely. No, you know, it's not in our best interest for me, my family, my neighbor, and this is what I'm going to do, or this is or renegotiate. This is what I'm willing to go or meet you halfway. Because I think we do take advantage of a lot. You know, it's see.
Yeah.
It's good to
I'll
say
go with
no.
it. I'll go with it because I don't want to make waves, you know. And a lot of that goes back to religion too. There's a dogma in the religion. You know, if you study Christianity, if you study Catholicism, I was born and raised Catholic. I was baptized. I did my communion. I did my confirmation. I went to catechism. So before you start trying to send me to hell or anything, you know, I'm just trying to say that if you really look at the facts of history, you will see that the cross was used in a way that it shouldn't have when it came over here to the west side of the world. And the way that they implemented and enforced that religion, even though there's so much truth and beauty in the words of Jesus and the words of God, the Old Testament, the New Testament. I just finished the book of Job this morning, actually. Beautiful story of Job in the Old Testament. I highly recommend it. So, I mean, the truth is there, but the way that it's taught to you is meant to keep you here. And that's what I discovered. So why not have a new way of an education system that promotes art, culture, and love, but at the same time, unity and strength through hard work, right?
Absolutely.
Why can't we change that now when there's so many tools that are available for us to make that change right now?
Well, right now you are the person that can do that, and I say that from experience. Many years ago, I would say approximately 25 years ago, our kids were dropping out of school like crazy. Not that they're not dropping out now. In fact, because of COVID, we've lost something like 3,500 students from, we don't know what they are. But anyway, going back to my original point is that a gentleman by the name of Bob Costo, who was the principal of Rancho High School, came up with the idea. He called me over and said, I want to start a mariachi program. And to me, it was like, what? Okay, that's awesome. Marvelous. But, you know, he said, I need the help of the community. And I said, look, I don't have it to give it away, but I'll give you $500. We'll start. I said, now I'll try to round up people up. Okay. A week later, he calls me. And he said, Senator Reed just donated $50,000 for the program. So thank you for the $500. Thank you for the interest. But I'll need you to help me out. I didn't. He did all the work.
Wow.
Because they had the mariachi. And the kids, in order for them to stay in school, they had to have even to this date, a certain GPA, a certain interest, and do all the work that has to be done.
Accountability.
And you have musicians now that are like 14 years old, playing the harp, the violin, the trumpet. You know, es el interés for them to stay there. But now it's beginning to, like, every school has a mariachi group now. Even the middle schools have mariachi. My wife works at Jim Bridges Junior High, or middle school.
That was my middle
junior
school.
High, yeah. and yeah, they have a mariachi group. They came in third at a contest that they had. Pero a lo que llego yo is it's becoming kind of common. Now we need something more, and that's why I'm supporting you 1,000%.
Oh, thank you for
with
that.
With an AB 238.
Yes, sir.
Porque you are Rob Macias, are the person that can draw all our young people to this, what you're doing. When you were setting up just now, I'm looking at my phone and I'm saying, I can't even get the program that the Smiths has and Albertsons has, you know, with a digital digital coupon, and you're doing all this stuff here, and I say with SB 338 being able to bring in approximately 10,000 jobs, Rob Macias has got to have a lot to do with that, which is why we should all give you our wholehearted support, because you are really, in my opinion, the future of Southern Nevada. I don't think about all the country right now. I'm thinking about our kids aquí in Southern Nevada. And really, I admire what you do. I admire the fact that you've helped me out. My organization, unfortunately, I'm losing contact. I'm losing that interest that people had in politics, because politics is not what it was even 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it's changing so dramatically that people are beginning to lose interest. There's no longer a Republican Party. There's no longer a Democratic Party. And we need to have somebody or something to bring us back to the fold. You helped me out. You've helped me out a couple of times, in fact. And I see you doing all kinds of things. And we, all of us, all this community, everybody within earshot of what I'm saying and what we're saying here, should give you our wholehearted support. Because you are really the future of our children.
Let me add into that.
Thank you, Fernando. Thank you,
Fernando.
Thank you very much.
If I could add into that, man. Now talking about that bill, we've been sharing, supporting that bill a couple of times ourselves, so they could hear us out over there on the Capitol.
Yeah.
And shout out to the unions, to all the trades out there that showed up and they put that shirt on, saying, "Hey, we need jobs, we need them union, and we need them now."
Yep.
And hopefully it's coming. Tell us about this bill. What's it going to do for the community, for our people, for your industry? Besides the jobs are going to open to build it. What else is the Sony bill? Dinos, with your whole take, because you're right there, bro. You know it A to Z.
Yeah, as much as I can, and thank you for that. And honestly, thank you guys for showing up to those meetings. I know you came to the last one and testified on behalf of supporter AB 238. Right. So thank you for that. And then you everywhere with that, and especially with the unions. So I felt very comfortable being in that space with you guys, because that was my first time being a part of something like that. It's a little intimidating going into like a government official building, but when something has to get done, guess what? You got to do it. Now the AB 238. That thing is a couple of years in the making, actually probably more like decades. Now, I've talked to a lot of people within the film and media industry here in Las Vegas. I have a pretty good substantial network. Shout out to everybody, especially on our board of directors for the Las Vegas Media and Film Institute, Anissa Cristal, Johnny Murillo, we have Brooke Hatch, and then we also have Daniel Ayala and myself as the president of the board. And with our connections from Hollywood to Las Vegas, we saw right now as a prime time to come up with this nonprofit and this initiative and mission to bring people out from the neighborhoods of Las Vegas, like specifically the East Side and specifically the North Las Vegas, and show them and expose them to different departments within the film and media industry. And the best way that I can explain it, guys, is if you watch a TV show or you watch a movie, and at the end, right? Sound like my dad right there. At the end, you see all the credits. All those credits is something that we kind of call below the line. And obviously, that's a lot of names. So that's a lot of jobs right there. And these studios, when they get built, while they're in the production of making films or making media, making TV shows, those people are going to need to work on those projects. So anybody that just knows from the entertainment aspect of watching a movie, a film, you're going to just see the cast. You're going to know about the director. You're going to know about the producer, the studio. But then, like I said, at the end, you see a whole army of people that put together that 1-2 hour film, and it's nuts if you think about that in scale. What if they did so many movies during the year? Look at all those job opportunities. Then it's not like this is a crazy idea like, oh my God, Hollywood 2.0, right? It's like, okay, pump your brakes, because there is a film industry in New York. There's one in New Mexico where Netflix studio is at, and they're building a brand new one in New Jersey. So that's going to be another film hub, New Jersey versus New York. There's Atlanta where Tyler Perry Studios is at. They filmed the Avengers movies over there. So there's a lot of different hubs just in the United States, Hollywood, obviously. And so Las Vegas is in a very prime position to take hold of an industry that's needing a change and a reformatting because of something called content creation. So this bill, what it's supposed to do is allow for the Summerlin Studios conglomerate, which is made up of Warner Brothers Discovery now because they just joined, and then Sony Studios, and also Howard Hughes Corporation, who's the developer. So Howard Hughes Corporation and those two studios are willing to put up the money in order to build these sound stages and have the Summerlin Studio campus right there at the Tube 15 where RC Willie is at, for people that know. Yeah. So once that happens, then they're going to need to employ people, and not only to work on the films and on the media, but just to even work on the campus, you know, the security guards, the maintenance people, the list goes on. And from that, beyond that, right, that one campus, there's going to be tons of runoff businesses that nobody's really thinking about. Because me coming from LA, coming from the Hollywood experience I remember when I first came here to Vegas and I was looking for an agent. I was looking for an audition studio. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find anything, you know, and then the agencies that I found, I saw they were doing their best to their capacity, but these are agencies that have been around for quite a while. And then the other ones are focused on modeling. So I was like, okay, it's different here. So what I was exposed to, the accounting firms, the law firms, the freaking hospitals that have to be on every call sheet when there's a production. There's tons of run-off businesses that come from it, prop houses, you know, florists, you know, it's just, there's so many things that are involved to make a film, because when you make a film, it's like you're creating a whole life in a universe for where you want to be, unless you're using virtual production.
Ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's an ecosystem. And big shout out to Jason Soto from Vision Vegas, because he's bringing a multi-million-dollar studio deal here to Vegas. And he's the person that brought View Studios here to Las Vegas. So big shout out to Jason Soto for doing everything that he's doing. Thank you, man. Now, with us having a great virtual production studio, 2 of them, as a matter of fact, and having Summerlin Studios, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to build all that infrastructure with the building trades. That's a lot of work for people that want to work on set, that want to work on the campus. And imagine where we will be 10 years from now, where we'll be 5 years from now. We could be another mega city hub for this type of industry, just like Atlanta, just like New York. So we just got to stay competitive with that. And the way that I really try to bring it home, because, you know, I'm a byproduct of working in the hospitality industry as well, is that what I noticed by living here, Nevada resident, Las Vegas for 10 years now, is that people are kind of pushed into either getting into the union or, you know, maybe going to college, getting yourself a degree, getting into a profession that's maybe a few options, right? You got the building trades, hospitality, casino industry, right? A service industry, politics, maybe. You know, I've actually met a lot of politicians out here, or people that are involved. And that goes back to the saying that says, big city, small town. You know, we're definitely a small town of people. So if you throw in this whole ecosystem of media and film, then you have options. You have options for the generation that says, I don't want to work in the casino. You know, I love my mom or my dad that does that, my family, or no, I don't want to work in the unions. You know, I don't want to have to go to college, because a lot of jobs inside of film and media don't require a college degree. I got a vocational degree, you guys. And, you know, and I've done some cool stuff. You know, my biggest deals have been about $80,000 that I've closed on my own, and they've been as small as like $1,500. So that's just me freelancing. And I'm not trying to brag or say that that's impressive or anything like that. But for me, hey, that's not bad. You know, like, that's not bad. You know, I'm sitting next to some heavy hitters over here, but you know, for me, that's not bad. And then so those type of experiences, that type of freedom, and that type of exposure is all I'm really trying to bring along to the kids that grew up like me in Las Vegas. And you never know, maybe something can happen to where we can expand, maybe go up in to northern part of Nevada, maybe go beyond that, because there's places like the LA Recording School, there's places like the New York Film Academy that have a satellite campus in another state. You know, so that's a real possibility. And I think what we're focusing on in the curriculum and the programs that we're pulling from, we're going to have something very special here. And then, like we've said so many times, there's a lot of raw talent in Las Vegas. There's a lot of raw talent. And I think once they're given that opportunity and taught how to use these tools and know the industry, it's going to like take off like that slingshot.
You know, and that's the part I want to tell you, remind you of one of the first things that Serafin, you know, we talked about when I met with him when he was with Chicanos por la Causa, off of Bonanza there in, you know, Bonanza and Eastern area. We were concerned. We were thinking like, what's going to happen to a lot of the throwaways, a lot of these kids who didn't go back to school after the pandemic. And, you know, we were thinking, okay, what's you know, he was big on the workforce training, you know, and that's one thing, you know, reaching out to you, we were thinking at the time is like, you know what, this is the next big thing. we already have, people with the union raza, the labor. We already have the hospitality, for those students and those people who sometimes maybe they don't want to go to school, but there's a lot of kids out there who are talented that, who love these kids love music. They love production. And I remember you took Donatillo, who also helps out in the process here.
Shout out Donatillo.
Who's also helping us out with the film, with the camera. You were telling me how these kids were like, oh, this is a real camera. They were holding that process, the whole process of being able to put it on your shoulder or put the equipment on and having like, well, not right now for you, for being a part of the Dolores Huerta Resource Center and providing that with Serafin Calvo and and how you're seeing on a daily, basically when you get out there and you're doing these these training sessions and it's usually complimentary for people, right?
Absolutely. Everything at the Dolores Huerta Resource Center is free.
And that's something that we can do, but also entrepreneurship, right? How do we teach people to become a business, not just to work for somebody? Because of the Latino culture in our country, a lot of times they look at it as labor, and we're not just labor, and we're more complicated than that. We're doctors, we're lawyers, we're business people, entrepreneurs. I went to a business event like 2 weeks ago, and everybody there was just talking about business, but they weren't talking about community. They were just talking about how free America and we're business and they're Latinos, right? And that's cool. But don't forget about that. You're just one generation away from, abuelita who came over, or your uncle, your cousin.
Absolutely.
And that to me is important that, we all have this process of getting to this country, getting to Las Vegas. Las Vegas, we have maybe at one point 3,000 to 4,000 people coming in, 3,000 to 4,000 people going out.
Yeah.
But the ones that stay, you build community. But with that said, I just want to, I'm proud of you, brother, for what what you're doing, and I think continue this process because I think like Senor Fernando says himself, you're the one, and that's at this table right now who's going to be able to create this beautiful environment from any section of Las Vegas. Because kids are spread out in Vegas. Latinos, non-Latinos are spread out who need something, who are right now laying in their bed thinking, what am I going to do? Yeah. And for you to bring this industry and help out and then talking to the big people and letting them know, hey, look, we got to make sure we educate the areas that, that need jobs to sustain and to protect their families and also, get a good economy in their life,
Absolutely.
So, bro, how does it feel? You're the chosen one, man. You got a lot of pressure. You got a community behind you. You got some people looking at you. Some people praying for you.
Thank you.
Because you're in the front of the game. I love what you're doing, and I love when you call me. Hey, do you know so and so? How can we get him? Can we get in a meeting with them? Dude, keep going. You have my support. I know you have my Canales support, and if the dream is big, and if it doesn't scare you, it's not big enough. So my respects, bro.
Thanks, man. Thank you very much, you guys. I got these manifestations that I wrote down long time ago, long time ago. And I feel like I'm living them out up to a certain point right now. And it's crazy how when you just focus and what you want out of life, it will be given back to you. Just make sure you're a good person. Make sure you're a good person. We're all going to be messing up. There was one Jesus. We're all human. We're all human. We're all going to mess up. We're all going to have flaws. I think there was a big lesson that I learned, and I'll share this. There's a big lesson that I learned recently. It's you shouldn't expect people to act like how you would act if you were in their situation. That's one of the biggest lessons that I learned lately. So when I meet people now, whether it be the youth or someone I'm trying to network with, I am trying to open my perspective to where they're coming from and what they need and how I can service them and what I can do for them, because a rising tide raises all ships. Win-win. So by having that bigger perspective, then I'm able to be a better leader in a sense. I remember there's a book I was reading yesterday. I was so happy to get back into my books. There's The Wisdom of Alexander the Great. This man knew the names of 10,000 soldiers that he did his campaign with. And he was known to always be at the front line of every single battle. And he was like 22, right? Mm-hmm. That's how he forged his empire. That's why you can leave Greece and go find a city that's called Alexandria, thousands of miles away. He was known to always have his people service first. And he trained as a medic, as a doctor, to patch up his people. And only if he was unconscious that they would actually attend to him. Other than that, he refused until his men were treated first. And it's those lessons in leadership to where I read books nowadays, like by Simon Sinek, that says leaders eat last. You know, I really take in that stuff. I really register it here, and then I go and I act it out. I can't help it. That's just how I'm wired. You know, it's not like I'm trying to do anything to be somebody. It's literally like, you guys want to brag about AI. It's like, dude, your computer that you have in your head, your brain created AI. Like, think about that. You know, an AI is prompts. You type in something and it gives you an answer back based on the knowledge that it knows from humans. Yeah. Think about that. All right. There is nothing that's more powerful than the creation and the machines that we are as organic human beings. And once you learn and appreciate your body, you appreciate the people around you, amazing miracles can happen. And I truly believe that. So if you apply all these lessons that we've learned from our culture, from our history, from our past, from our present, from the knowledge, you know, and me, I've prayed for so many years to have wisdom. You know, I value wisdom over anything else in life, and God knows this. And I really try to act that out the best way I can in service of God and the Lord.
Right on, man.
Well, amen to that. And again, we need to get started.
Yeah.
And I think to a certain degree we already have, but we're not as far ahead with this project, if you will, as we should be, because it's there and other people know it. And I've always said what some other people have said, that while you're thinking about it, somebody's doing it. So we have to be that someone else, and we have to get started. And again, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're willing to do this. I'm glad, and hearing you talk, I'm more than satisfied with giving you all my support personally, as well as bringing other people on board to support you. And we got to do it now.
Okay.
And just as we finish this off, my perspective from your conversation, and I just picked up from you, you're like the golpe and the guide.
What's
you
that?
know?
I never
And for me, it's like, it's like from what you said from that one experience, I've had that type of experience, but you also are a guide. You guide people through, you know, for your trial tribulations, and you can recognize, you know, you talked about, you know, helping other people, that, you know, you're like, you're in that moment when you have that golpe in your life, but then you also can guide them. You're not just the golpe, you're actually a little bit of both. And that right there it's a lot of value in that, because you recognize these young kids or anybody who comes across in the future that you're going to be able to guide them, and, you know, and you're what? You earned it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's important as we, you know, we progress in this process of Yo Soy Joaquin, just like, you know, Jorge Gonzalez, he was the golpe and the guide as well, right? Because that's where we're at right now. We've all received these golpes, but también we get up. You know, we don't just stay down. That's what sports taught me, is to get up, keep it going. And you're gonna, and that's, you know, now with, you know, with Las Vegas being where it's at, and the diversity and the university and diversity in the UNLV, and also you got Reno. There's so much beautiful things happening right now that there's people doing great things. Now we just got to collaborate. Just like Serafin always said, we have to collaborate to get this together. And it's just like Senator Fernando just said, we gotta, you know, we're the action now. So thank you for sharing this beautiful full story. If is there anything else you wanna share?
Yeah, I got a question.
Sure.
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
God, I just hope I'm still alive. You know? Like,
that's a good goal.
Yeah. Because, you know, sometimes, like, I met a wonderful woman recently, and sometimes, like, I step back and I just hope that, you know, as good as it is now, I hope it can only get better, and I hope I can only do it in service of the, you know, the Most High. And honestly, I got no idea, but I'm not scared. You know, I go to pray, you know, usually every night. And I just say, thank you for the food in my stomach. Thank you for the roof over my head. You know, thank you for my family. Thank you for the people that are there for me and supporting me. I pray for you guys too, you know, and it's just, that's enough for me, because I feel like I've been on borrowed time for a long time. So it's like, I'm just here because I need to be. So when my card is up, it's up. But, you know, damn, let's change the world first.
Let's be alive, yo.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. Thank
Anything you want to share or add before we call it in?
definitely. Shout out to Donatiu right here, Mr.
Donatiu.
Aesthetic Studios. Next generation, come up. Fantastic photographer, fantastic cinematographer. He has his own enterprise that he's building. I see what they see in me, I see in you, my friend. All right. And I hope that I can be of value to you because your generation is what we're doing this all for. Okay.
Compa passing the torch already. I like it.
Thank you, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you, man. Gracias.
Absolutely.
Bendición. With that said, thank you everyone for being part of this podcast, and stay tuned. We have some beautiful things coming up. And yo soy Joaquin.
Blessings, everyone.